Hello, my name is Althea, and this is my Project 1. This program's purpose is to give a suggestion of a plan for a hangout idea with friends. Questions will give options of location and food for a user to decide, and in the end, will give an output of the full plan. The intended functionality of the program is to give a series of questions for the user to answer in order to create a suggested hangout plan with friends. I wanted to create this program because I wanted to possibly create something related to what I have experienced in life. In this case, I remembered how my friends and I were always indecisive on what to do for a hangout. Oftentimes, we would just bring up hanging out, but always end up not knowing what to do, as everyone seems to be shy of giving ideas, which eventually puts the whole idea to the side. With this, I thought of creating a program in which could possibly help friends narrow down on their decisions and create a possible plan on what to do, from the location, activities, and food, in which they could all make memories from. The process I took was creating a really rough draft, but mostly just creating the code as I go. First, I created three main sections for my intended output. My three main output results were to make users decide on a location, activity, and food. And with this, I created two set of questions. My first question covers the location and activity. I did this by first asking whether the user would prefer a setting indoors or outdoors. And with the result leads them to another set of options for the specific location based on their previous input. After they pick out a specific location, the program stores the user's input for later use. For later results. Then it moves on to the second question, where it covers my last main point, which is about food. Once again, the program is narrowed down with options for users to avoid incomplete results. Similarly to the first question, the user's input for the question will move them to the next portion based on their answer, which makes the user pick a location for where they should get food. However, as a side note, if a user decides to put in an input beyond the given options, the program will print a message that their option is invalid and skip on to the next question. And in the end, it will result in an error for the reason that the inputs are invalid. This is my most complex conditional statement, as I want the program to continue asking for the rest of the questions, even if one is invalid. And in the end, tell the user to get the idea to try again with the error message, suggesting to pick only from the given options. A lesson I learned from this project is to be precise when it comes to what you want the user to see and copy, slash, write in as their input. Additionally, thinking about the possible inputs the user can input, which the program could take as something else and result in an error. While testing the program and letting others try it, I've discovered this problem. I ran into a lot of errors because of how the user types in the option. I've noticed how the program will immediately result in an error if the program doesn't recognize the input because it is capitalized or punctuated or typed out differently from the way it is programmed, which confuses the program for it to be something else, which then creates error for the rest of the program. Therefore, I decided to change it and give a broader options of users' input for the program to accept whether the input is fully capitalized, only one letter is capitalized, or none. This is to keep the program going and still giving out the intended output. Now go over the code specifically. In my code, I first wrote down a header, which is to print. Let's figure out a location, which is my first main point. And in question one holds for a user's input to pick whether they want outdoors or indoors. And like I've mentioned, because of errors, I've learned to give more options for the program to accept from the user on how they type out things. And to explain this whole section of if, elif, and else, if the user chooses between the options given, it moves on, it moves them to the next section of a follow-up question, specifically for based on their previous answer. For example, in this case, if the user chooses to input outdoors as their option, they would be led into picking between a park or the beach. And if users input one of these options, they are then directed into a follow-up question. I mean, they the program will then save the corresponding response for the option for later output results. However, in another case, if the user decides to go beyond the option and choose a location not given by the program, beyond park or beach, for example, the program will then skip these options and go to else and print out the line of invalid input for location. Please try again to the user. However, the program will not completely stop or break. It will still continue on to the next question, which is based on what they want to eat. Similarly, if the user picks within the realm of the options, they are redirected to its corresponding section, which will then be, which in this case has a follow-up question compared to the first one where it immediately just says between the two options. In this case, if you were to pick in one of these options, they are given a follow-up question on specifically the place where they want to get this food from. And similarly, from the first question, if the user decides to input something else beyond what is given by the program, they are given this prompt. And in the case that the user does follow the program within its realm and write it out and avoid getting prompted the message of an invalid input, they should be given a result to print out this whole code of statement that based on their input their plan is created, and it should print I suggest you hang out based on the location from question 1 and the activity, and the food from question 2 and it's the place where it's from. And once again, if any error was done between one of the questions, the program will then print out invalid inputs, couldn't create a plan, and for a user to try again. Now let's try running the program. Like I've explained, if user does follow the program, let's first do when the user does not follow program. Let's say the user follows the program on the first section, however decides to go a different route for the second question. Like predicted, the user will print out that the input isn't valid for food preference, which will then give an error as activity is not defined as expected. Now let's try if the user was to given an invalid input for the second question. I mean, for the first question, within the first question. Similarly, like I've stated before, it will prompt an invalid input for location. Please try again prompt. However, still move on to the next question. And let's see if the user follows through and chooses one of these options. They are still given an error as the program cannot give a full-on plan, given that they did not follow the program. Finally, let's run the program how it's supposed to be ran by the user. As we want, the program gives out the result of an output based on our previous responses, which I suggest you hang out at an arcade where you can play arcade games, which is from the activity, and possibly bowling, laser tag, or roller skating, which is based off the location our user picked, which is the arcade. And finally, for the food, it gives out our input of the food option and where we wanted as we intended. That is my program. Thank you.